Let's talk about boundaries today. Very important part of our relationships, but really, really hard to do sometimes. So I want to tell you why it's hard and give you a new way to think about it. I'm Stacy Rocklein, and it's my mission to eradicate loneliness. And one of the reasons that we don't do boundaries is because we fear loneliness. There are different reasons why they're hard for us. Sometimes we know the other person's going to have a big reaction to it. And so we're concerned about that and how that's going to make us feel and what that experience is going to be like. The ones that I have an easy time with are relationships where I'm not that invested. And if the person pulls away from me, or even if the relationship ends, that would be okay with me. That would be okay with me. So it's easy to put in boundaries then, right? If I have a relationship where it's really solid, it's like, this is a for sure thing. This isn't going anywhere. We are totally okay. Boundaries are easier there too, because even if there's a reaction or a pullback, I feel really, really connected to that person. Where I really struggle, and one of my kids is like this, is when someone pulls away from me. When putting in a boundary creates a pullback, a disconnection. And especially, when kids are little, they're kind of stuck with you. You've got all this time to develop a relationship. But as your kids grow into adults, relationship becomes a choice. And that pullback feels scarier to me. So those are the places that I struggle with. That's where I hesitate. But it's really important that we stand for ourselves, we stand up for ourselves, and we put in boundaries so that we can create intimacy and safety in our relationship. So I want to give you a different way of thinking about it, because boundaries, they feel like walls, when we think about them, or they feel like fences, or they feel like limitations. But I want you to think about drawing a circle, okay? Drawing a circle. Now, everything outside the circle is the stuff that's off limits. The boundary is the circle, but inside this circle is safety. Inside this circle is where we can be honest, we can be authentic, we can be ourselves, and we can thrive. The relationship can thrive when we're both standing inside it. So instead of a limitation, I want you to think about a boundary as an invitation. It's an invitation into a safe space where both people feel protected and the relationship feels protected, and you can thrive in there. And we just have to have some things that are off limits, right? Simple things like, name calling. We have a rule that there is no name calling in an argument. So that's outside the circle. But what it means is inside the circle, when we're having an argument, we're safe from that because we have that boundary. Now, one of the reasons that people struggle with boundaries is because they think of them as one and done. We're going to have this conversation. I'm going to tell you the boundary, and we're going to leave it. It's going to be perfectly fine. But it's not. It's a process. And I recognize that boundaries can be almost painful for some people. So having some confidence by knowing a process for doing them can be really helpful, especially if you hesitate in some of your relationships. So the first part is acknowledging you need a boundary. Your emotions are going to point you in that direction. So it's first kind of figuring out, oh, I know what's going on here. I need a boundary, right? The next part is the planning. You're not even having the conversation yet. You're thinking about what boundary makes sense and what consequence makes sense. If I even need a boundary, you're going through this pre-boundary stage with yourself. When you get that all fleshed out, now you're going to have that conversation. And there's a very particular way to have this conversation to make it go more successfully. And there's a lot of no-nos when it comes to these conversations. So then you're actually having the conversation. And it doesn't end here. After you put in a boundary, things are going to happen. One, you're going to have feelings. So you have to have this aftercare about your boundaries. You're probably putting in a boundary with somebody who is going to push back. The people who don't push back, those are the relationships that while they have boundaries, they're kind of invisible. We don't have to talk about them because there's this mutual respect and care. When you have to put in a boundary, it's usually because someone's pushing and they're probably going to push back. That's okay. This is just a part of the process. What do you do with that? So it's a whole 4-part process to actually put in a boundary successfully and to manage how you feel throughout it. But remember, when you can do it, you can bring both of you into that circle of safety so this relationship can thrive. Now, in June, inside the Seen and Heard membership, we are going to talk at length about boundaries. I'm going to do 4 trainings, one for each of these parts of the process of boundary setting. And it comes with a workbook. And so inside that group this month, not only are there going to be these trainings, but we're going to be talking about where we stumble, what we struggle with, what gets in the way, what are the obstacles, what are our successes, and what works. Because this is a critical part of relationship and it's really normal to struggle with it. But when you've mastered it, you can create those circles of safety in all of your relationships. So you can come join our group and you can follow along in real time. Or if you don't get a chance, all of the trainings go into your vault. So you can return to those and have access to those as long as you're in our membership. And if you're watching this video after June, you still would have access to those trainings inside our Seen and Heard membership, where we have a lovely community of people who are just talking about relationship and the challenges and the wonderful, positive things that happen inside them and how to create more of them and how to nurture them and keep our relationships safe. That's the ongoing conversation that we have in that group. And so you can come join our membership anytime, and we would love to help you with your boundaries in a lovely, loving, wonderful, safe space. So think about joining us, and I wish the best to you in all of your boundaries, and I hope you have lots of little circles of safety around you.